The umbrella was the kind of cheap thing you buy at a drugstore and forget you own until it saves you. I kept it rolled up in my work bag for months, the kind of habit I picked up after getting soaked walking to a client meeting last spring. That Tuesday morning in November, I was glad I had it. The rain came sideways off Lakeshore Drive. Not the gentle kind. The kind that finds the gap between your collar and your neck. I was walking fast with my head down, already 10 minutes behind, when I almost collided with her at the corner of Michigan and Erie. She was standing at the edge of the sidewalk, looking up at the sky with the specific expression of someone who had made a bad calculation. No umbrella. Thin blazer. A leather portfolio tucked under one arm, pressed tight against her body, like she was protecting it more than herself. I stopped without deciding to. "Here," I said, and held my umbrella out toward her. She looked at it, then at me. "I'm only going to the next block." "So am I." That was not exactly true. My office was 4 blocks north. But she looked at me for another second, and then she took the umbrella. We walked together without discussing it. She kept the umbrella, mostly centered between us, which I noticed. Most people tilt it toward themselves without thinking. She didn't. At the next corner, she stopped and handed it back. "Thank you. Keep it. I have another one at the office." That was definitely not true. She studied me like she was deciding whether I was a liar or just overly generous. "You don't." "Probably not," I said. That made her pause. Something moved across her face, not quite a smile but close enough that I felt it. "Rowan Ashby," she said, and extended her free hand. "James Keller." She shook my hand once, firm, then turned and walked toward a glass-fronted building a few doors down. I watched her disappear through the revolving door, still holding my umbrella. I went to work without it, and got wet at lunch. Completely worth it. The thing about that corner was that I had walked it every morning for 2 years without ever seeing her. After that Tuesday, I started noticing her absence at it. Which is a different kind of noticing and not one I was proud of. I told myself the story simply. I helped someone in the rain. It was a minor thing. People do minor things for strangers, and then go back to their lives. Except I kept thinking about the way she held the umbrella. The following Monday, I was running late again. Different reason. My coffee maker died mid-brew, and I spent 6 minutes troubleshooting something that turned out to be a dead outlet. I grabbed my coat and got out the door later than usual, which put me on that corner at a different time than normal. She was there, same corner, different weather. Clear sky this time. She was standing with the umbrella I had given her, closed, tucked under one arm with her portfolio, like she had just come from somewhere, or was about to go somewhere, and had paused for a moment in between. She saw me before I saw her. I caught her watching me as I came around the bend, and she did not look away. I would learn later that she never looked away first. "You got wet," she said as I approached. "Not that wet. Your left shoe is still doing that thing where wet leather takes 2 days to recover." I looked down at my shoe, then back at her. "You're very observant." "I'm an architect," she said. "I notice things." I had no good response to that. "I work 3 blocks north. Brand strategy." "I know," she said. She said it plainly, like it was a normal thing to say to a person you had met once in the rain. Then she shifted the portfolio under her arm. "I should get in. Thank you again. For the umbrella. You kept it. You said you had another one." I lied. That almost smile again, a degree warmer than the first one. "Rowan Ashby," she reminded me, like I might have forgotten. "I remember," I said. She went inside, and I went to work wondering what kind of architect knew the brand strategy office 3 blocks from her building. I assumed it was coincidence. Later, I would learn that Rowan did not really believe in coincidence, which was a generous way of saying she believed very much in preparation. I did not see her again until the end of that week. I went back to that corner a couple of times. I am not going to pretend I didn't. Thursday, nothing. Friday morning, she was there again, and this time she looked like she had been waiting for a bus that was not coming. You don't actually take the bus from here, I said. No, she agreed. Then, what are you doing? She considered the question seriously. Getting coffee, she said, nodding toward a place called Birch & Co. that I had passed maybe 100 times. Can I get one too? She looked at me steadily. You're asking if you can go to a public coffee shop. I'm asking if you mind. I don't mind, she said. Inside, Birch & Co. was the kind of place that took its coffee seriously without being obnoxious about it. Dark wood, low music, good light. We ordered at the counter and took the 2 chairs near the window, because she moved toward them, like they had already been hers. How long have you been in Chicago? She asked. 6 years. Moved from Columbus for a job that lasted 2 years, then stayed because I didn't have a better reason to leave. That's how most people end up staying somewhere. What about you? Born here, she said. Left for school, came back to open the firm. Your own firm? 3 years ago. She said it the same way she said everything else, without performance. Like it was just information, but I caught the small lift in her chin that I was already learning to notice. It was a risk. Seems like it worked. So far. She wrapped both hands around her cup. Most risks either work or they don't. You rarely know which one you're in while you're still in it. I thought about that for a moment. I feel like I'm in the middle of that right now. At work, I said. Then I paused. Other things, too. She heard the qualifier, but didn't push. I liked that about her. Rowan was not the kind of person who pulled at loose ends before you were ready. She seemed to already know when something would unravel on its own. We stayed there for 40 minutes. Neither of us checked the time, which is something I noticed only afterward, because I always checked the time. After that, it was not accidental. I am being honest about that. I started going to Birch & Co. most mornings. Not every day, because I still had some dignity, but enough that the woman at the counter learned my order, and that was either charming or embarrassing, depending on how you looked at it. Rowan was there 3 or 4 mornings a week. We did not always sit together. Sometimes she was already deep in drawings, spread across the table, and I would catch her eye and get a small nod and sit somewhere else. I learned to read the difference between her open laptop posture and her working on something real posture. I didn't interrupt the second one. The mornings we did sit together were the kind I had not had in a long time. She talked about structure, the way most people talk about feelings. Load-bearing walls and glass ratios, and the way light moved through a building at different hours. She had opinions about roof lines that were more passionate than most people's opinions about their actual lives. I talked about work, which lately had started to feel like a track I had climbed onto at 24, and kept running without asking whether I still wanted to be on it. I told her that one morning, not expecting much, and she set down her cup. What would you be doing if you weren't doing this? I don't know, I said. Yes, you do. I looked at her. Photography. I wanted to be a photojournalist. What happened? I got good at brand work first. It paid better. The moment passed, and I kept going. Rowan was quiet for a second. Or the moment is still there, and you've just been walking past it. I wanted to say something deflecting and clever. Instead, I just sat with that for a while. She had a way of saying things that didn't try to fix you, but somehow left you with more room than you had before. I started to dread the mornings, when I walked in, and her chair was empty. I started to look forward to the sound of her voice before I even sat down. Small things, the kind you don't notice, are adding up until they already have. One Thursday morning in December, she walked in with her jacket, damp from sleet, and her hair pushed back in a way that made her look irritated and unreachable. She ordered her espresso and sat across from me, and I asked if she was all right. Design review tonight, she said. City Planning Board. New mixed-use project on the south side. That's big. It's 3 years of work. She pulled a rolled set of drawings from her bag and smoothed them open on the table. The presentation is fine. The board is not predictable. Is there anything I can do? She looked up from the drawings. Why? Because you're the most focused person I know, and right now you look like you haven't slept. I haven't slept. Then let me help, I said. Presentation walkthrough, talking points, anything. Brand strategy is basically the same problem. You have an idea. The room is skeptical. You figure out how to speak their language. She studied me for a moment, and something shifted in her face. Not the almost smiles. Something quieter. Tonight at 6, she said. There's a conference room at my office. I'll be there. I spent my lunch break doing exactly 0 work-related tasks, and instead reading about the South Side rezoning proposal, the planning board members, and the kinds of questions that had killed similar projects at previous hearings. When I showed up at her firm that evening, I had 3 pages of notes and a very mediocre takeout order from the Thai place around the corner, because I had assumed she had not eaten. She had not eaten. We worked for 2 hours. She walked me through every panel of the presentation, and I interrupted with the kinds of questions a skeptical board member would ask. She answered all of them. And some of the answers I made her say again, because they were too good to say only once. Somewhere around hour 2, the takeout containers were open on the conference table, and she was sitting across from me in her blazer, with her sleeves pushed up, and she said, without looking up from her notes, "You're good at this. Brand strategy. Listening." She looked up then. Most people listen to respond. You listen to understand. I did not know what to do with that, so I just nodded and moved to the next slide. At 8 o'clock she walked me to the elevator. She held the presentation materials under one arm, the same way she had held that portfolio the first morning in the rain. "You'll do fine tonight," I said. "I know," she said. Then quietly, "But thank you for being here." She got the approval 2 weeks later. She texted me just those 2 words. "We got it." I stared at the message for a moment and then typed back, "Of course you did," she replied. Don't start," which made me smile for probably longer than was reasonable. After that, things between us moved the way Chicago winter moves. Slow, with a weight to it, but present in every direction. The mornings at Birch & Co. started to feel less like a coincidence I had manufactured, and more like something we were both showing up for. She remembered things I mentioned once. The client presentation I was dreading. The fact that I hated cardamom. That I had a younger sister in Portland, who I did not call often enough and felt guilty about. She told me things too. Small things at first. That she kept a physical calendar because digital reminders didn't feel real. That she had walked away from a partnership offer at a larger firm 3 years ago because the senior partner kept rephrasing her ideas in meetings as if they had been his. That she had not taken a vacation in 14 months and did not particularly miss it, which she said like a confession. "That's not healthy," I told her. "I know." She sipped her espresso. "I'm better when I'm working." I know how that sounds. Like someone who hasn't figured out what rest is for yet. She looked at me sharply, then looked away. Maybe. January came with the kind of cold that makes Chicago feel personal. I was walking back from a client lunch one afternoon, collar up, hands shoved in my pockets, when my phone buzzed. "Rowan, there's an opening at the Kendall Gallery on Friday. Architecture and urban photography. You should come. I can get you in." I stood on the sidewalk and read it twice. Then I typed, "Are you going?" She replied, "Yes." That was all she said. Friday night, the gallery was warm and crowded, in the way that art openings always are. Half the people actually looking at the work, and half performing the looking. Rowan was near the back when I found her, standing in front of a large, black and white photograph of a partially demolished building. With light coming through the broken wall. She was looking at it the way she looked at everything. Like she was trying to understand its structure before she decided how she felt about it. "What do you think?" I asked, stepping beside her. "Technically, it's straightforward." She tilted her head slightly. But there's something about the way the light is framed. He knew what he was doing. Or she. Rowan agreed. She glanced at me sideways. You should be taking pictures like this. I take pictures of products and brand assets. That's not what I asked. I looked at the photograph for a moment. I have a camera. I haven't touched it in about 8 months. Take it out this weekend. It was not a question. It was just the way Rowan talked. A kind of forward pressure, not pushy but certain, like she could already see the answer from where she was standing. We stayed at the gallery for 2 hours. We stopped in front of maybe 30 photographs, and she told me what she saw in each one, technically, and structurally, and I told her what I felt in each one, which she listened to with the specific focus she gave to things she found genuinely interesting. Outside, we stood under the awning while she waited for her car. The street was wet from earlier rain. I forgot to ask you something, she said. What? She looked at me. And for the first time since I had known her, she seemed to be deciding something. What are you doing tomorrow morning? Nothing specific, Dop. Come with me. There's a building on the west side I'm evaluating for adaptive reuse. I want another set of eyes. I know nothing about architecture. I want your eyes, not your expertise. The next morning, I met her outside a 6-story brick building in Pilsen that looked like it had been a manufacturing plant in another life. She walked me through it the way she walked through everything, floor by floor, pointing out the bones, the problems, the possibilities. I took pictures with my phone at first, and then she looked at me and said, "You brought it, didn't you?" I had. I had pulled the camera out of the closet the night before and charged the battery without exactly deciding why. I spent the next hour and a half taking photographs of that building, while Rowan took measurements and notes. She did not watch me work. She trusted me to be there and do my thing the same way I had learned to trust her when she was sketching. And I was drinking coffee across the table. By the time we got outside, the January light was flat and clean, and I had taken maybe 200 photographs. On the sidewalk afterward, she looked at a few of them on the camera's screen. She scrolled slowly. She did not say anything for a while. "You were always going to be good at this," she said finally. "I could have told you that. You did," she said. "At the coffee shop. You just didn't believe it yet." I stood there on the sidewalk in Tilson, with my camera in my hand, and the cold coming off the concrete and the weight of that comment settling into the middle of my chest. That evening she texted me one more time. "Those are good photographs, James. I want to show you something on Thursday." No explanation, no context. Just that. Thursday morning I arrived at Birch & Co. at our usual time. Rowan was already there at our table, no laptop, no drawings. Just her espresso, and an envelope sitting flat on the table. She pushed it across to me when I sat down. Inside was a printed email. A photography collective downtown was accepting submissions for a group exhibition on Chicago's built environment. The deadline was in 3 weeks. "I'm not a working photographer," I said. "Not yet, Rowan. You have the building photographs. You have 10 others I've seen that are better." She looked at me steadily. "You've been waiting for someone to tell you you're allowed." "I'm telling you." I set the email down. I wanted to argue and couldn't find the argument. "You're relentless." "I prefer thorough." I submitted 6 photographs that night. 3 weeks later, 2 of them were selected. She texted me immediately after I told her. 3 words. "Told you so." I laughed alone in my kitchen for a moment and then felt something ease in my chest that had been tight for longer than I could measure. We went to dinner that weekend to celebrate, not Birch & Co. A real dinner, the kind where there was a reservation and wine and no laptops anywhere in sight. She wore something dark and simple, and she looked completely herself in a way that made the rest of the room feel like background noise. Somewhere between the appetizer and the main course, she said, "When does the exhibition open?" "March 15th. "I'll be there." You're the reason there's anything to be there for. She shook her head slightly. No. The photographs are yours. I just reminded you they existed. I looked at her across the table. Why do you do that? What? Deflect credit. She was quiet for a moment. I'm not deflecting, I'm being accurate. There's a difference? Always. She turned her glass slowly. I was taught that taking credit for someone else's work is the fastest way to lose their trust. Something in the way she said it made me pause. Who taught you that? My father. Her voice shifted slightly, went a little quieter. He was the most trusted person in every room he walked into. He never overstated his part in anything. People knew they could believe him because he never reached past what was true. He sounds like someone worth knowing. He died 4 years ago. She said it evenly, but her hand settled flat on the table. He never saw the firm open. I think about that sometimes. I did not offer her a platitude. I just nodded, once. I think he would have understood what you built. She looked at me across the table with something I hadn't seen in her face before. Not the almost smiles. Something more unguarded than that. Yes, she said softly. I think he would have. We stayed for another hour. When we walked out, the March air had the first cautious hints of warmth in it. The kind Chicago throws you one night in late winter to remind you spring is theoretically real. On the sidewalk, she stood beside me and neither of us moved immediately toward a cab. James, she said. Yeah. She turned to face me, and for the first time in all the months I had known her, Rowan Ashby looked like she was about to do something she had not rehearsed. I need to tell you something, she said, and I need to say it right. My stomach tightened before I understood why. Okay. She drew in a breath. The morning with the umbrella. That wasn't, she stopped. Started again. It wasn't entirely random. I looked at her. The sidewalk noise kept going around us, cars and distant voices. All of it suddenly somewhere far back. What does that mean? I said. Your firm was mentioned in a development proposal I was reviewing. I looked up the agency. I found your name, some interviews you'd done, a piece you'd written about visual identity and public space that I read 3 times, because it was exactly the way I think about buildings. She kept her eyes on mine. You mentioned in one interview that you walked Michigan Avenue every morning. I started taking a different route to the office. I stood there. The corner, I said. Yes. You were there. I was there on purpose, she said. 3 times before the rain. The street felt very quiet all of a sudden. 3 times. I kept losing my nerve, she said. And then the rain came and you stopped, and you held out that umbrella, and I hadn't planned what to do after someone actually did something kind, and I just took it. She exhaled. The coffee shop was real. All of it after that was real, but the first moment was not chance. I looked down at the sidewalk, then back at her. The article, I said. Yes. You read it 3 times. 3 times, she said. Because it sounded like you. Because it sounded like someone I wanted to know. Her voice was steady, but there was nothing controlled about it anymore. I'm not asking you to be fine with it. I am asking you to know that I am telling you because you deserve to know, not because it's safe. I did not say anything for a long moment. Taxis passed. Someone laughed on the other side of the street. How long have you known you were going to tell me? I asked. Since the gallery, she said. When you stood in front of that photograph and said you hadn't touched your camera in 8 months. I thought, I'm helping you find something real, and I'm built on something that isn't. I leaned back slightly against the building behind me. You could have said nothing. I know. I wouldn't have known. I know that too. I looked at her. Rowan in her dark coat, her portfolio against her side, looking more uncertain than I had ever seen her. The woman who walked into every room knowing where the exits were, standing on a sidewalk with no exits and not moving. I need a few days, I said. You should have them, she said. A cab came and I got in. Through the window, I saw her still standing there, not watching me go. looking straight ahead the way she looked at buildings she was trying to understand. I spent the weekend going back through everything. Not the way you want to, where you can pick and choose the moments that feel clean. I went through all of it. The corner. The 3 mornings I did not know about. The umbrella. Birch & Co. The conference room. The gallery. Pilsen. The dinner. She could have constructed all of it. She had the capability for it. Rowan was the most precise person I had ever met. If she had decided to engineer something, she would not have left loose ends. But I kept coming back to the same thing. She had not had to say anything. I had photographs getting hung in a gallery because she had pushed a piece of paper across a table and told me I was allowed. I was sitting with my camera after 8 months because she had seen something in me I had stopped seeing in myself. She had done that before she told me the truth. Whatever came after the umbrella had been her, not a plan. She texted me Saturday. Just once. Take your time. I mean that. Then nothing else. On Sunday evening I texted back, Birch & Co., tomorrow. 8 a.m. She was already there when I arrived, her table. No espresso yet, just her hands flat on the surface. She looked like she had slept about as well as I had. I ordered my coffee and sat across from her. 3 mornings, I said. 3 mornings. And you kept losing your nerve. Yes. That's the most human thing you've ever told me about yourself. Her jaw tightened slightly, then released. I know. I leaned forward. I need you to hear something. I'm listening. The beginning bothers me. I don't think it stops bothering me for a while, and I'm not going to pretend it doesn't. I held her eyes. But everything after that umbrella was real. I know what real feels like, and I know what managed feels like. Those mornings were real. The conference room was real. Pilsen was real. You telling me the truth on that sidewalk when you didn't have to. That was the most real thing. Her hands moved slightly on the table. I have one condition, I said. What? No more architecture of the relationship. No positioning, no strategy, no managing what I get to know. Anne, she said. Not defensive, not explaining. Just a clear answer. Good. We sat with that for a moment. Outside the window, Michigan Avenue was doing its Tuesday morning thing. People in coats, coffee in hands. The city moving at its regular pace, indifferent and necessary. The exhibition opens March 15th, I said. I remember. I want you there. I paused. Not as a contact. Not as the person who submitted the application. She understood. As what then? As the person who walks into the room like she already knows where everything is, I said, and stands next to me in front of something I made. Rowan looked at me for a long, quiet moment. Then her face changed. Not the almost smile. Not the controlled version. The real one. The kind that changed the whole structure of her face and disappeared quickly because she was still Rowan. And some things took time. I'll be there, she said. She ordered her espresso. I finished my coffee. We stayed until 9, the same way we always had. The conversation moving from the exhibition, to her Southside project, to the cardamom thing, which she found inexplicable, to whether I had called my sister, which I had not. Call her, Rowan said. I know, tonight. I know, she almost smiled. You always know, that's the problem. Outside, the morning had cleared into something that felt like the first real hint of spring. Not warm yet, but willing. The kind of day Chicago gives you so you remember why you stayed. We walked the same direction for 2 blocks without discussing it. At the corner of Michigan and Erie, we both slowed. She looked at the corner for a second, then at me. 3 mornings, I said. 3 mornings, she said, before the rain. And you kept coming back. She held my eyes. Yes. I nodded once. So did I. She held the umbrella slightly at her side, the same one from November, still in her bag, which I had noticed weeks ago and not mentioned until now. She looked down at it, then back at me, like she had been waiting to be caught. I did not say anything. She did not say anything. We turned and walked, in the same direction we always ended up going, which was, together. Which was the only part neither of us had planned. And both of us had chosen.